KFUG Community Radio. It is, let me get my glasses back on, 5 minutes past 2. Just Paul with you. Time now for Snowflakes. Actually, what we're doing today, it is the Jesse Davis show. Because we've got Jesse Davis on this hour talking about everything that's been going on, and there's a lot been going on. And then he's going to be sticking around into Sam's hour. Sam will be in later on. He's on at 3, Conversations with Sam. So let's just jump right in. How the heck are you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing okay. Happy Father's Day.
Happy
Paul.
Father's Day to you, and you're hanging out with your daughter today, and doing this instead of. I guess is this an okay Father's Day thing to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. I'm enjoying my day for sure. So I get to pick it. So
you get to pick what? What do you mean you get to pick it?
I get to pick what we get to do.
Oh, okay.
On
Because it's Father's Day.
That's right. That's right. So we're doing it just right.
Right on. Well, happy Father's Day to you. And let's see. Let's start. So what's been going on with you?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been here. I think I had. Sort of hope to be able to be here more regularly to give updates on what the Cannabis Working Group is doing.
You want to start with that? You want to start with the working group?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So excellent progress with the Cannabis Working Group. The board unanimously passed the personal cultivation ordinance, 5 votes. And so very pleased to see that. That took a fair amount of work to get that done.
Was that one of the, I mean, that's basically the first thing that you guys worked through?
The first thing that we did, at the request of the board. Yeah, we were ready to tackle commercial retail first, but the Board of Supervisors asked that we address personal cultivation regulations first. And so we did that. And we also, the board passed the commercial cannabis tax ordinance that will go to the November ballot to be voted on. And happy about that. That got 4 votes. Roger wasn't there, wasn't in attendance to vote on that. But he voted no to the introduction of the ordinance, so we guessed that he might have voted no to the tax. But Bob Berkowitz and the rest of the board voted in favor of the tax measure, which we're happy to see.
And that was one of those, because it's a tax measure, it's going to the ballot. That was, you required 4 of the 5, correct?
Yeah. Well, you have to have 4 votes for that, 4/5 vote, to put a tax ordinance on the ballot. And then that'll be has to be passed by 50% of the vote. But interestingly, there's another statewide initiative that will be on the November ballot likely. I'm not sure if it's qualified yet. And it's sort of an anti-tax measure. Okay. And what it asks voters to vote on is to change the voting requirements for any new taxes. So right now, a general tax can be implemented with 50% plus 1 of the vote. And a special tax requires 2/3 vote. A special tax is one where you're specifying where the tax money goes specifically.
Oh, okay. Not its collection, but its use.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
So that requires a higher level of approval, 2/3. So this measure that we'll see likely on the November ballot will require all tax measures to require 2/3 vote, whether they're general or special tax. And interestingly, it's retroactive to all taxes passed this year. So it will apply to our cannabis tax. So we won't know if it requires a 50% or a 2/3 until after the election, whether or not this other initiative passes.
Wow.
Yeah, so quite a wrench in the works. And I'm guessing people will probably vote for that. People don't like taxes, although people don't understand the nature of it and what it's for exactly. Local taxes are important, much more important than coercive federal taxes, but
you're letting your libertarianism
yes,
shine
absolutely. But local taxes can be directed much more directly by the people. You can pay attention to where it's going, and you can show up and give your 2 cents about where you think that money should go, and you can vote accordingly when your supervisors are up for election. Based on how that money is spent and so forth. So
it probably won't be as steep a hill because this is a sales tax. So it's not something that's just assessed to everybody. It's specifically a usage/sales tax.
You can avoid the tax easily.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't go buy pot. And what are the taxes already on from? Are there state taxes already levied on? Yeah,
there are. There's a 15% excise tax. There's sales tax, which applies already. That's at the retail level. There's other taxes at other points in the industry also that just get passed on to the consumer in the end. I think the calculation for the effective tax rate is about 40 to 60%, depending on the locality. Some localities have added double-digit taxes. Luckily, we don't have double-digit taxes. We have a variable rate that will be on the ballot for retail. And I think it's 2 to 6%. I want to say, is the variable rate there for retail. Reasonable.
So folks going to vote in November need to understand that this is a local tax. This is something that stays here in Del Norte County. This is what Del Norte County wanted to garner from legalized cannabis.
And it truly does stay here. Don't believe people who say, "Oh, it goes to the state first, and then we're never going to get it back." That's baloney. It goes straight to the Del Norte General Fund and doesn't go anywhere else.
And this is what proponents have said all along is what is the good that we can get out of this. Right?
And it doesn't apply to medical cannabis. So if you are in need of medical cannabis, you're not paying the local tax.
Okay. What will happen the first of the year with medical cannabis? Because it's
the regulatory structure changes. Yeah, so we have a relatively unregulated market and structure now that we've had for the last 20 years. And then at the first of the year, it's sort of another deadline among many for implementing more fully regulated access, whether it's for medical or recreational.
Okay, and here in Del Norte County, though, if we don't get ordinances passed, everything just kind of grandfathers out for the time being, right?
Yeah, people could potentially be in violation of state law, although the courts have yet to weigh in on that.
Okay. Well.
So, here we go again.
Here we go. Exactly. And of course, it'll be retroactive when they do too.
Right. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Cannabis access isn't going away in Del Norte County.
Yeah. Okay. So, any other things that you guys have gotten out to the board thus far?
Yeah, the working group has pretty much wrapped up our discussion on the retail ordinance, and kind of handed off those recommendations to county council, and county council will produce an actual draft ordinance to be reviewed by the working group and by the public and the board. And then the board will see that. So
that's the process. You come up with the ideas, you pass it off to council. Council says this will fly, this won't fly, whatever.
That's right.
Legally, and then they give it back to you, and it goes to the board.
They're there at the meetings, so we don't have to do a lot of back and forth. We just produce something that is legal.
Yeah,
and then they just take our as Joel puts it, our wonky discussions and puts them, which is an excellent term, by the way, and then puts it into legal terms that are real, and then puts it on paper so people can review it as it would be. And that's been the process so far. It's working great. We're making great progress.
What's left ahead of you guys? After you get there?
Yeah, all the commercial components. So we just are starting that.
Okay, all right. What other parts are there?
Yeah, so there's manufacturing.
Okay.
There's processing. There's distribution. And then there's cultivation. Okay. Which is the larger of those components in terms of details. And there's some others too. There's like some other license types that fit in there too, that kind of under those categories.
And it's interesting. A conscious decision to sort of start at the storefront with the retail side and then work backwards from there as far as the distribution chain of cannabis.
Yeah, goes. For sure. Because maintaining access that we already have existing retail. And so making sure that they can stay and continue providing access and locations. That was the most important thing. We don't have established manufacturing. We don't have a lot of established cultivation, things like that. And there's things that can wait, that they're able to wait. It fit the timeline, in terms of state licensing and such.
How's it going with the board and the new chair?
Excellent. Our working group.
Working group. Board.
Boards and groups. Exactly. Yeah, we are the Cannabis Advisory Committee. Is
that really what it's actually called?
No, it's called the Cannabis Working Group.
Okay, that's right.
Cannabis Advisory Committee sounds smoother. So, yeah, Blake Alexander is chairing the group now, and he's a real professional. He's experienced with running meetings and keeping things on task and organized, etc.
Did it feel good to kind of get that off your plate?
Definitely. I didn't want the responsibility. I was volunteered to be it.
You were volunteered. Transitive verb.
And accepted it, yeah. So it's all been an ad hoc kind of thing, making up the rules as we go. But yeah, no, it's going really well. And and it's probably suitable. I'm potentially interested in applying for a cultivation license in the county if it becomes a thing, and so it's fine for me to not be chairing the meetings as we get into the cultivation discussion. Robert made it clear that he's interested in having a commercial retail license, and so he wasn't chairing the group while we talked about the retail ordinance, and such. So it makes sense on that front. And and like you said, just not having as much responsibility during the meeting, it's easier for me. And Blake actually, he has a lot more experience. I've never run meetings ever in my life. I've never spoken publicly until I started speaking in front of the board last year. And Blake obviously has a lot of experience with it, so he's well suited to it. And he's he's a very sharp guy. He's very helpful. He's very he respectfully includes his principles in a way that can be easily integrated into the principles of the whole group.
How does that work then? You've got somebody who is the chair of the working group now, who's on the record for being basically anti-recreational cannabis.
Yeah,
right?
the most vehemently opposed to it probably of anybody who spoke.
So I have not watched the meeting since
Except
he's been
maybe Roger. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but it's okay. But Roger's not the chair of the board. How does that work dynamically with the group and with the stated purpose of the group?
Sure. Well, it's an absolute necessity. It's like without that voice, we wouldn't be able to have a very well-rounded policy. You have to have confident voices from all positions in order to create policy. But you also, those confident voices need to be able to let go of ego enough to be able to find realistic solutions that are somewhere in the middle. And Blake's really good at that. He doesn't demand extreme things. He listens. He's considerate, thoughtful, and able to negotiate. I can't say anything bad about him. Nothing but good things to say.
No, exactly. There's been criticism of the working group very recently, actually, although not well thought out criticism of the working group, but criticism nonetheless. That is the working group. You need to incorporate the will of the people in this county who are not for recreational cannabis, and you've done that with the chair. That's right. Can you give any sort of example of how you've been able, or Blake's been able, to sort of fold his principles into the work of the working group and still at the same time not derail it from its stated purpose?
I could only guess. He would probably be better to answer that, from his perspective, how he feels and like what percentage of what he wants we're getting, I suppose. And I
don't want you to put words in his mouth, but just from the outcome, knowing what he has put into it.
I think largely what I would say is that everybody has learned a lot about each other's perspective. And I would say it's less about trying to interject what we want and more about understanding what other people want. And that's been the real key. And I think that in any negotiation, trust is the first thing that you have to establish.
Trust in what?
Trust in each other and each other's intentions. If you don't trust the person that you're negotiating with, then you don't feel like you can be honest. You feel like you have to do things like a battle. You have to wage war like a battle. and cover your bases and not be genuine and not be vulnerable
and not tip your hand in any
exactly
way.
not show your hand. And it's counterproductive. It really slows things down. And you know, in a warlike environment, you know, where people are shooting at you, that's entirely appropriate. You can't necessarily trust who you're dealing with. You just have to watch your back so you don't die, right? But in policy making and local politics especially, I think that's just, it's not necessary. And it's so much easier to just be honest and friendly and find out where you have common ground as human beings. And then suddenly you're friends. And then suddenly the process just unfolds. It's like magic. It's unbelievable. It really is. And you understand the perspectives in a way that you didn't understand before. And suddenly you find yourselves not disagreeing. You find that you never did really disagree that much. That the truth of the matter is that you really want the same things. You just didn't realize it.
And then the outcome then is something that you both are invested in.
That's right.
And care about and want to protect and make sure it works as well as possible.
Exactly.
So, talking about trust and local politics and being as open with another person and perhaps not seeing that other person as an opponent or as somebody to be bested. How does that inform then this recall effort that you've inaugurated?
Yeah, the recall effort.
The recall, which has been it's been crazy to watch all the things happening online. I thought we'd get to the election, everything would calm down for a while, but no. So
election season continues potentially.
You've got now. Let's talk before we get into motivations and things. Let's just talk the mechanics, then the timeline of the recall. You've got the initial signatures necessary, and you have published the intent in the paper.
Right.
So now it's just open season for signature garnering?
No. After the notice was filed, I believe that officially was last Tuesday, there's a 7-day response period from the supervisors.
Okay.
And so they'll provide their less than 200-word response each. And then...
is that something that will be published in the paper as well?
No,
or is that just a
that
public
doesn't
statement?
get published in the paper, but it gets printed on every piece of paper where signatures appear for the collection purposes. So it'll be well circulated. And so that has to be received. Those statements need to be received and then printed up on the form, on the petition, and then the petition needs to be filed with the recorder's office and compared to the publication, notice of intent for accuracy, etc. And then after it's approved, then signatures can be collected.
Okay. Any idea when that will begin?
Next week sometime, I think.
Just after, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do this, and... God, where to go from there? Let's start with who. You are seeking to recall Supervisor District 5 Bob Berkowitz and District 1 Roger Gitlin.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not a proponent. I'm a District 3 voter, so I'm not technically a proponent as it's defined.
You can't even sign this petition.
I can't sign the petition. I'm not a proponent of the petition, but any person, you don't even have to be a citizen of this country, interestingly enough,
really?
in order to fill out a form and run an ad in a newspaper. That's open to any human being.
Wow. But what matters are the legitimacy of the signatures then that you get, correct?
Sure. Okay. And then so the proponents are the registered voters in the respective districts.
Okay. All right. So but then what would be how would you liken your role then in bringing this about?
Well, yeah, I've been rolling that around in my head the last week or so.
Yeah.
And I've been surprised a little bit to see people upset about the prospects of an election in America in a representative republic. where we operate under the principles of democracy, I have to laugh a little bit how people are concerned about holding an election. It's like, are we living under Putin where we're afraid of having an election? I mean, what's going on? So that's the first thing I would say.
Let's be fair. Let's be fair with this. It's not a regularly scheduled election. This is an election. It's almost like an anti-election. It's a vote of no confidence.
Well, I would disagree with that. I think that if people think that, then they have a misunderstanding about how the electoral process works. Mm-hmm. I think, like, for example, there's a lot of people who didn't understand how I can initiate a recall petition when I'm not in either of those districts. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know, too bad for you for not reading how the process works. It's no different than going to the polls and voting. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's exactly the same. And so if there's enough people who want to hold an election, I mean, remember, this election doesn't get held until we collect more signatures than Bob or Roger even received to get elected. When you look at how many votes they got and got elected by, it requires this about the same, a little more in Bob's district, to even have an election. So for people to be upset about an election process unfolding, a political process unfolding, is pretty alarming, honestly, because it shows that people are unaware of that it's even an option.
What about the folks who will criticize this? And I know Sam will probably say this when you're on with him later on, about this will cost the county thousands of dollars.
Like $2,000.
Is that it?
Maybe. I don't
really.
Not that much. I mean, what do you mean by thousands of? That could mean anything.
To have a special election.
Well, this is not a special election.
Is this just? Are you seeking to have it on?
Okay. Let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
So
I have not seen any paperwork.
If signatures are collected in a magical amount of time, then it can be put on the November election, on the November ballot.
On the November ballot. So it's just another item on the November ballot.
That's right.
And the magical amount of time that you have in order to
it's a few weeks.
A few weeks, and then do you have any idea off the top of your head what the deadline would be to?
Well, it depends. It's not a clear line because there's some things like the recorder's office has to approve all the signatures. Mm-hmm. And then it has to go to the next regularly scheduled board meeting for approval, et cetera. Okay. So there's some things that depend on other people's actions in order to make them happen or not. But suffice to say, it's really only a few weeks.
Wow. Okay.
So I don't think, if Bob and Roger have a lot of constituents that really support them and love them, then they should have nothing to worry about, right?
True. if your back's against the wall in order to get these signatures together to get them.
Now, it's not to say that the proponents couldn't choose to continue to collect signatures for 120 days and then force a special election. That's within their right also.
And that would be okay.
And that costs the county somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000, I believe, which is like $2 or $3 per citizen. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That would be about Trump change, right? So.
Oh, I got to start using that. That's good. Okay, so we've gone through the mechanics, the nuts and bolts. That's a great answer for somebody who's going to say this is going to cost thousands of dollars. Well, no, it's going to be another thing on the if everything goes according to plan. I would assume it would be another item on the November election. Why do this? Why go after Gitlin and Berkowitz?
Well, I guess I could have included Lori also. She's eligible. Chris and Jerry just got elected, and so there's some rules. There's some rules about recalling people who just got elected. So
but you didn't go after Lori.
That's the simple answer. Yeah, that's right. I didn't go after Lori.
Why not?
Let's see.
I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's back up.
No, that's a good question. That is a good question because I've been asked specifically to go to recall Lori too. Well,
let's start with the reasons for.
Lori's pretty new. She hasn't been in office all that long, and I watch the meetings. I don't catch everything. Here's what it is answering why going after Bob and Roger probably answers why not going after Lori.
Yeah.
And we'll ask another question. Why not seek a recall of Sheriff Eric Apperson?
Okay, why are you asking this other question then?
Okay, so because Sheriff Eric Apperson is well loved and respected in this community. Mm-hmm. So a recall effort would never be successful against the sheriff, right? But Bob Berkowitz and Roger Gitlin have a lot of people in this community who are really, really upset with all kinds of different reasons, for all kinds of different things. Too many to enumerate. Most of them.
Yeah, but you're not going to justify going after them because they're vulnerable.
Absolutely.
So
I absolutely am. That's absolutely why. Because the fact is that there are huge numbers of people who are not satisfied with Bob and Roger. And so the correct remedy for that is to put them up for election and ask all the registered voters what they think.
Okay, all right.
It's as simple as that. And people are trying to make all this hay about it, and it's ridiculous.
Okay. Now, that seems a little oversimplified because you filed the paperwork. So what is your problem then with Bob and Roger? Is it just because, people are just unhappy with them? Or do you have specific reasons?
I'm not going to go down that road. That's just a negative road to go down. And I think that that's exactly what Bob and Roger would love for me to do.
Why? What do you mean?
To lay out things for them to push against. To argue against and fight about and cause division.
Wow, really? So you're not going to offer any justification?
No. I like Bob and Roger for all kinds of different reasons. Sure.
Well, yeah.
And I have problems with the other 3 supervisors too.
Okay, but there's a recall effort for them.
Absolutely.
Filed by you. You don't even live in their district. Why should you care?
Well, I asked myself before I did it, I was saying, how come with all this dissatisfaction, it's an enormous amount of dissatisfaction that I hear from people, hundreds of people, everywhere I go, all walks of life, complain about Bob and Roger. And I'm thinking to myself, why in the hell hasn't a recall initiative been started? I can't believe this. Right? And so I pick up the phone and I call Elisa, the recorder, Delaware County Recorder's office, and I'm like, I know nothing about the recall. I don't know how this even works. I figure, it can't be done, or it's too expensive, or whatever. I don't know. So I'm answering my own question. How come a recall effort hasn't been done? How all these upset people, how come they're not doing anything about it? They're just complaining, right? So I get a packet of paper and I read it and I find out, wow, this is ridiculously easy. All you have to do is fill out a form. It's tedious. It has to be accurate. But everything I do in my daily life is harder. So I was like, this is unbelievably easy. And I'm still all on going, why the hell hasn't everybody done this? What's going on? This is really weird, And so I file it and I do it. And I get cannon fire against me from all different directions. And now I realize, that's why people aren't willing to stand up for what's right, and aren't willing to stand up for what they believe in, and aren't willing to stand against injustice. Because there's tons of people who are willing to go on personal attacks to harm you personally and put your safety at risk instead of arguing with you intelligently about the issue. And that's ridiculous. And that defines the problem. That's part of the problem. And now that becomes another reason for the recall. If you have supervisors and you have their supporters who are intimidating the public so much so that nobody except me is willing to start a recall initiative, I'm not even in their district. I don't even care. They have no influence on cannabis policy. All the ordinances we need to pass can pass with 3 votes. So it's intimidation. They're bullies. They already are intimidating proponents on the list. And that's wrong.
Okay, all right. No, hold on. Give me a second, because you've thrown me with this here. I understand your logic, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And the response online has been reassuring to me, because there are a lot of followers of Gitlin and Berkowitz who are so loud. And Crescent City Times, the whole bit. They've got a lot. Even Sam Straight, who's on after us here, and you'll be his guest there, and I'm sure he'll get like this with you. But to see the reaction of all the other people going, oh, thankfully, someone's doing something about this. Somebody needs to stand. I can completely understand that. But I have to say, in all honesty, it seems a little disingenuous to me after what you've publicly gone through with these guys. Roger can kind of sit off on the side. In my mind, at least, because he's been open about what he thinks right from the get-go, and it's
Roger's been pretty consistent. Although I have a personal nasty email from him too. Like
everybody does,
So I haven't revealed it, but I could come up with personal beef. And then Bob's done a bunch of crappy things to me in the working group too. But specifically
the blackmail. I mean, and I don't mean like blackmail, like he's got
to incriminate. It's not blackmail because there's no money involved.
No, okay, all right.
Political horse trading,
coercion, maybe instead of horse trading, maybe you could say attempted coercion. I mean, you voice in the context of the SB 54.
I don't need to repeat that. That's already out in the public. So.
Yeah, but I think if we're talking about motivations for a recall effort, it's important. It's important for me, like when I see this happen and I see this come out, and I know what's happened with the with you stepping aside with the chair of the working group, and at the same time with Berkowitz asking you to apologize publicly for something you said in an unrelated topic about Gitlin appearing.
Right. Yeah, who does that, right?
And then coming and say he's not gonna back the work of the working group out of the blue because of this other thing. When I see that, I go, yeah, of course. That's got to be a motivating factor.
That's not. It's that style of politics that has upset a lot of people. So I think that putting the focus on me is not relevant.
Okay.
I think that, like,
I don't think you should skirt that, because in this small town, people know what's happened.
Well, exactly. So I don't need to repeat it. Everybody already knows. And if you want to talk about it, if you want to bring it up, if Sam wants to bring it up, I'm happy to talk about it. But I'm not going to bring up the past. All right. Like if the petition is successful and we have an election, and then there's a vote and an outcome, and we move forward, I don't care about the past. I want to move forward. I want to talk about progress. I want to talk about solutions. I want to talk about all the good things that Bob and Roger have done in their terms. All right, that's what I expect to hear from them during this unexpected campaign cycle.
Yeah, okay.
Is that I want to see them. I want to see them talk about all the good things. Well, no, but that's what I would like to see. I would like to see them talk about all the good things that they've been doing for the county, and then have all of their supporters get behind them completely and defeat this recall.
So the KAEF, right? Is that that's the call sign for the Eureka station? Did this 2-part report this week on the recall?
Yeah, yeah. The reporter called me on the phone.
Yeah, I know. But he's got a lot of that, and Roger and Bob had a lot of FaceTime and standing in front of the E Pluribus Unum and all that stuff. And I'm okay, great.
Yeah, and it was all so great. Every time they open their mouth, it just solidifies their need for the recall, and I don't even need to say anything. They just, every time they open their mouth, they just dig themselves deeper into a hole.
And so they're trying to say it's because of differences over cannabis.
Right, which is so, like, they must think the voters are really stupid to say that. I mean, that's like ridiculous.
And other than the ban to end the temporary ban in February, whenever that was, has Berkowitz voted in any way that you'd expect or appreciate with the work of the working
No,
group?
the board has passed, including Bob, they've passed every piece of policy that's come out of the working group. So to say that, and Bob made that point. I watched his interview. He was saying, well, somebody could replace me who's totally anti-cannabis, which is totally true, which totally proves the point that the motivation is not about cannabis policy. He's making my point for me because I'm not that stupid. It's like we already have cannabis policy in the bag. We don't need Bob and Roger. They're not relevant. It's 3/5 vote, everybody. All the rest of the ordinances that were passing, the only one that required 4 votes was the tax ordinance. And I want to tax myself? I'm trying to help the community, by God. If Bob had blocked the tax, I'd be like, fine, great for me. I'd have one less tax I have to pay. It's like, duh. I can't believe how idiotic the arguments are that it has something to do with cannabis. I mean, that's just a scapegoat, like it's always been. They're trying to take cannabis and make political hay out of it for one reason or another. That's got nothing to do with cannabis policy, and people can see right through it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you think people can see right through it?
I think
they're paying
50% plus one can see right through it. And that's what it takes in a representative republic that works under democratic principles.
So that's what you're looking, then the recall is just 50% plus one, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right, good. Okay. All right. So,
and if nobody runs in the election, then the governor appoints a replacement.
So who's what do you make then of this week? And everything that's happened with Linda Sutter and the basically what I call the online stalking and all of the craziness that has come out and people, I mean, at a board meeting wanting to know exactly where you lived, where your wife lived.
It just helps the case. It's embarrassing. I'd be embarrassed to be Bob and Roger and have these people as my supporters. Mm-hmm. It's embarrassing, and it helps further the whole point. That most of the people supporting them are saying stuff like that, and they have yet to say anything substantive, and they just want to go on personal attacks. And it's great. I welcome it. I've got nothing to hide. Everything that's been revealed is public record. A lot of it's not even true. So I don't even care. I really don't. It's like I saw a bumper sticker recently that fits with this, and it said, "The truth will set you free, but not until it's done with you." And I love that. That's great.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually really cool. All right. So now I can see where you're coming at. I can see where you're coming from with this stuff. What then are, if you're wanting to give the voters of Delmar County an opportunity to remove these 2 men from the Board of Supervisors for their various and sundry reasons, and
everyone's got a different reason.
Everybody
don't even care what they are. I'm just saying that the voters should have an opportunity to weigh in before 2020.
Why not wait till 2020? What's the harm in waiting till 2020?
Because we can do it now.
Because we can do it now?
Why wait? Why put things off till tomorrow that you can do today? Isn't that like a phrase that some wise man said somewhere?
No, that's like a phrase somebody put on a T-shirt once. So is that enough to? So why wait? Really? Why wait? Why not keep track? Why not keep making noise and holding their feet to the fire and let the democratic process play itself out?
We don't have time for that.
Why not then? What is it you're hoping to? If we don't have time for that, what is being held up by them staying in office till 2020?
Community discussions that require a board of 5 that are interested in genuine solutions for progress in our community.
And for anybody interested in seeing what that would look like, go to a city council meeting.
Come to the cannabis working group meeting.
There you go.
There's 5 different people, 6 different people. There's 14 people on that group, for crying out loud. If you add all the staff in.
Oh, wow.
And we don't even vote. We do everything by consensus. And so it's embarrassing that the board behaves the way they do. Mm-hmm. All 5 of them, not just Bob and Roger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's the recall is only targeting Bob and
Well,
Roger.
maybe Chris, Jerry, and Lori are next. Huh? Watch out. Anyone can be recalled for any reason. You don't even have to give a reason.
It seems to me almost like you're skirting the motivations that you had coming into this. And I don't know if I
Oh, people need to quit worrying about me. I'm not even in those districts, remember. All I did was fill out a piece of paper and run an ad. Get over it.
That's more reason to want to know why you did it then.
Because I believe in voting and democracy, and I see a bunch of people who are intimidated into exercising their political rights. Damn it.
Was there any...
Literally, its political rights are not being exercised because of intimidation. And if I have to be the one to get mud slung at me by Linda Sutter, for exercising my political rights as defined by law, that's unquestionable.
Don't you?
It's unquestionable.
Aren't you afraid though that by doing that you'll set up some sort of situation in which people, especially the noisy people out there who want to make a big sound out of all of this.
Good, expose them all.
But if they come and they go, look at you, you're being cagey about your motivations for this. What's that say about you? Don't you think that makes it easier for them to sort of paint with a broad stroke this effort?
Let them. I'd love to see that broad stroke. I'd love to see what kind of brush they pick out and what color paint they choose.
But take that to the end. Take that to the end of that. What's the final? If they're able to do this,
I have no idea.
But if they're able to do this and defeat it, what's been accomplished? Whereas if you came out and said, no, Bob Berkowitz...
They're able to... No,
But if they're able to do it with these nefarious, noise-making, broad brush stroke means, then if nothing happens...
I have more confidence than that in the voters here in our county. So I'm not afraid of that. I mean, if that's the case, then that's too bad for our county. That's unfortunate. I
think you're missing a point here to say, and the people who know what has happened, what the history is with the working group, and with the comments that you made and the reaction.
Sure, I know everybody wants me to get angry, and everybody's got advice for me about not just you. I've heard it from so many people. They want me to point it out. They want me to make a laundry list of things,
or at least one thing. Because if you come up and you just say, and this is sad.
Well, we talked about it so many times. I mean, we said it already just in this interview, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, we've already brought up several things.
True.
Crappy things that Bob and Roger do.
I see
why dwell on it? It's like, let's just ask the voters. Why? Well, I mean, here's the thing. Look, when you look at what it takes to do a recall petition, an intention to circulate a recall petition, you're supposed to give a statement, 200 words or less. But then down in the fine print it says the sufficiency of the reason cannot be reviewed. You can say anything. You don't need a reason to hold an election. And that's where people are confused. And I'm not going to fall for it. I refuse. Maybe tomorrow, maybe I'll wake up with a revelation where I go, I've been all wrong, and I need to come up with a bunch of better reasons for this. But until that happens, I'm pretty confident that going negative like that, and people say that's not going negative. It's talking about the facts of the matter and whatnot. But that's not my job. I don't think. I did my job. I filled out a form and I ran an ad and I handed it to people who I thought really cared, who were in those districts, and they're taking it from here. And if those people want to bring up things that people are expecting me to bring up on the outset, then great. I'm happy to address that. If people have specific questions for me, Paul, if you want to ask a very specific question about something, I will always answer it.
Yeah.
But I am not going to bring up anything ever.
Okay. All right. So here's a specific question. Okay. How much of this was motivated by the fact that Bob Berkowitz came and asked you to change or to publicly apologize to Roger Gitlin over comments you made in the context of SB 54 and threatened to withdraw his support of any work that the working group had done? Or also, not to broaden the question too much, how much of it was also the fact that he threatened, or he's finally publicly stated, I forget at which meeting, that he was not happy with the recent developments of the working group. After all of this, having not approached you at all in any way, this coming just broadside out of the blue, seems very much tied to a desire to want to control you in the context away from the working group, and also influence the working group. Yeah. How much of your motivation is anchored to those points?
Well, I have plenty to say about those things, but assessing, I suppose, the percentage of the motivation, gosh, that'd be really hard. I'd probably somewhere in the single digits, maybe 4 to 6%.
Okay.
2 to 6%, the same as our retail tax. That's the percentage of the motivation. But I don't know. That's impossible to assess. But I will talk about it for sure. Yeah, I was really disappointed. I brought it up at the last my last working group, my presentation, my report. because the purpose of the reports that I give is to get some feedback, or questions or something, And Bob said almost nothing at all of my reports. And then after I gave my report, and after there was a discussion on the tax, after there was already a motion on the table for the tax and everything, then he says, I've been very disappointed. I don't remember the exact quote, but I've been very disappointed at the direction that the working group's been going for quite some time. Now, that's a heavy statement, because I'm there to receive that input and be like, well, please articulate so that the working group can,
quite some time.
And can adjust, because that's the whole point of those presentations, is for me to get any kind of feedback and then take it to the working group, and we integrate it directly. We don't ignore it. That's our whole point, is to find policy that will pass, not just come up with something that we want and then see if it'll pass. We want to know beforehand. We don't bring motions to the floor that we know aren't going to pass.
Yeah.
So that was really disturbing. And I don't think it was genuine. Because otherwise he would have said something during all the previous meetings. And then the next working group report, I forgot to address that. And then the subsequent one I did, I brought it up, and I said, I quoted him too. I didn't say he said it, but I said one board member said this. And so I want to remind you, it's extremely important. If you ever feel like we're going in the wrong direction or anything, you got to say it. You can't come back after the ordinance is already produced and county council spent all this time and money doing it, and then say, oh, I don't like that. Well, what the hell? You should have said that when we were talking about it, making policy. And that's exactly the kind of thing that both of them do that are counterproductive to policy making. Instead of engaging in policy making at the time that it's relevant, they play political games in order to put people on record as this or that, say one thing depending on who's in the boardroom or what the topic is, and then say completely the opposite depending on the different situation, and there's no consistency. And it doesn't work for creating policy, and it's a game, and it's silly. And that's one of hundreds of reasons why I believe, and why thousands of other people believe, that the recall is appropriate.
Okay. All right. So looking ahead then, we have the recall. We get what is it you want to see happen with the board? I think we've talked a little bit about this so far, but ideally, what changes with the Board of Supervisors if the recall is successful?
Oh, in terms of who might run in their replacement?
Not even who, just even the culture of the board.
Shoot. I don't know. I don't know enough about that. Yeah, I mean, I defined that pretty clearly in the statement. There's some platitudes about community cooperation and being in the best interest of progress and such. So generally, I think that's everybody's dream, right? But that depends on who fills those seats entirely. So that's what it's dependent on. And as far as political spectrum, I don't care. I mean, it's a nonpartisan seat, so the board members shouldn't be bringing in national political issues that are largely identified with a particular party. That's not really local policy making role of the board, I don't believe. I think the Board of Supervisors' job is it's basically like land use policy is the vast majority of what the board does. They work with community development, and then they make some decisions about spending money. And then other than that, if you're in a super liberal town with a bunch of controlling people who like to make a bunch of little nitpicky laws and stuff like Arcata, then they've got a different role. Then that's more like social policy and all that garbage, and I hate that stuff. I'm a genuine conservative libertarian, a realistic libertarian. So
that's an important distinction, I think. Yeah.
So here in our county, we're lucky that we don't have a government that's largely interested in being super involved in your personal life and telling you what to do and such. We don't have the money to do that, so that's a good thing. So the board's tasked with land use issues, stuff that community development deals with. Mm-hmm. So it's community development is the driver of everything, and then the planning commission reviews it, and then the board, they get the easy job. Yeah, they don't like. Their work is educating themselves about the vote, but the vote itself is like the icing on the cake. That's like not that's not work. I mean, that's just approving the work that's been done by everybody else subsequent to them seeing it. That's why the Board of Supervisors is a part-time job. It's part-time pay. You have to have a real job in order to be a supervisor in this county.
Yeah.
So well, you start at like 25. I looked it up. So you start at like 25 or 30. It's pretty low. Goes up from there, over time it can go up. So if you want to calculate benefits and what you think they're worth, I think that's over exaggerated.
See, I don't know. That's a pretty good living in Delaware County.
Well, $80,000 cash, but I don't think it's $80,000 cash. I think it includes something, like an overpriced insurance policy that you can probably buy for pennies on the dollar.
If I were elected,
market.
I would want mine in cash. If I were ever elected.
Exactly, yeah. Government provided benefits are a ripoff. You get pennies on the dollar. So.
I don't even get a dental plan. What's going on with this?
Right, it's going to cost you more than it would cost just to pay the dentist.
Oh man! All right, Jesse. Well, thank you for coming in and talking with me about this.
Sure.
Up next, you'll be talking with that man over there about all this.
Yeah.
And it is 4 minutes away from the top of the hour, so I'm going to play that other song that you had.
Sure.
We'll some underwriting announcements in. And again, thanks for coming in and sharing with all this. What is it looking forward to now? You've got about a week or so, and then you've got people in the districts who are going to get out with the petitions, right? If somebody's interested in finding the petitions, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah.
Just keep an eye on the paper, on Facebook, on...
God, I'm trying to just kind of forget about the whole thing. I'm busy, man. My plate's overflowing. I didn't even have time to do this. It took all day, man, to do that paper and file it. It took a whole day. I couldn't believe it, Can you believe how long democracy. It took? So I'm behind. So I'm not sure, but I'll come up with something. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. All right. Just ahead. All right. So right around the corner here, we've got a song, some underwriting announcements I want to play for you, and then Sam Straight, Conversations with Sam, and his guest today, you guessed it, Jesse. I almost called you somebody else. Jesse Davis. I guess vice chair now.
Yeah, vice chair is my official title.
Vice chair of.
And I won't be giving the report at the next board meeting. Member Eric Gunther will be giving the report at the request. Yeah, just to have some diversity.
Oh, that's nice.
But I intend to be present if I can make time.
All right. Well, thanks for making time for us here today, Jesse. Really appreciate that. So here's some Bob Marley. Take us up to the top of the hour. KFUG Community Radio.